see a causal thing, and somebody might say, "Oh, aha! He wasn't saying that John Edwards was going to commit suicide due to the horror of the perp walk." Okay, he didn't say that the owner of the tabloid that had started this whole meme would be arrested and blah 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 blah. But at the time, the prominent suicide and this kind of thing, it will be filled in by the personages involved. So in that sense, as I say, the whole should be self-filling, and we really shouldn't need to go into them. The exception being that the hole's relative to market activity, because there's a lot of information going on there, and a lot of it, quite frankly, is leaking out through idiots that assume their communications are more or less private, and they're involved in investigations and stuff. And it just gets reported and reported and repeated, and we pick it up eventually. And so I don't want to go into any of that kind of stuff because of the very real potential of it being used as a point of liability against me.
Okay, thanks. Now, you've talked about the timing of your reports and using the metaphor of a funnel, but it seemed to me that over the last 2 or 3 years on the forum and reading your reports that it's been somewhat helpful to be able to take apart the layers and see what's going to happen, because it's all sort of happening now. So it's been helpful as a forum member and a reader of your reports to contemplate in advance some of the things that you saw happening, say, a year ago, but it's all happening
showing up
now.
Today.
Yeah.
Makes one very calm in a sense. Yeah. It's, well, I appreciate, thanks for noticing is the politically correct response to that. And indeed, it's also very heartfelt. Thank you for noticing that it aids you to know this ahead of time and just go,
Mm-hmm. Was that strategic on your part?
Oh, sure. That's the whole point of this.
That's the whole point.
And it can be revealed at this point because I don't know how we're all going to end up here. But, my whole point was, way back when, in the progression of my brother's illness as a terminal patient there, I got to the understanding that it was not necessary, that he need not have suffered as he had, and that a great deal of his suffering was quite deliberately engineered, although not specifically focused at him. It was just generally applied by the powers that be. So I got really upset with these guys, and I had come to an awareness that they existed, and mostly I didn't care because, for instance, the smart individual could harmonize with them and bet with the Fed, as the markets say, and you could have done all right. But they really irritated me with what my brother went through, and it was totally unnecessary. So I determined that, there must be an asymmetric response in which I, as the flea on the dog, can cause some problems. At the very least, get back a little bit of irritation, along with our, now reasonably famous motto of "I am the dog who gnaws his bone. I sit here and gnaw it all alone. A day will come which is not yet, when I will bite him by whom I'm bit." And it's and so going along that route, I thought, how could I, as a single individual with a few smarts, do something that would have an effect totally out of proportion to my resources, that would spread throughout the planet, that would cause some real irritation to these bastards. And well, this is how you do it.
And okay.
So, you see, and it's like, at this point, it doesn't matter anymore. They know what I'm doing, and they've taken action over this last year to let me know that they know what I'm doing, and that they're aware of this. And so it's not like it's a big secret anymore. And the way you do that is you cause those ripples to go out by preloading things in people's minds, such that basically everybody who's ever read the report and then had an aha moment when something has happened is also forced to contend with the obvious question that thereafter arises. If it could thus be seen ahead of time, was it all planned?
Okay. I don't know what to say.
It's sort of my little joke with universe, yeah. And it also goes back to what Lao Tzu said. And Lao Tzu, he was the guy who had 3 great treasures, but he also had a couple of other really good understandings. And the understandings are that he who is captured by desire can see only the manifestation. And she who frees herself from the desire can see only the mystery. And then he goes further to say that the true function of a Taoist, that is to say, someone on the path who's attained some level of skill, is to do the small thing that causes the action at a great distance. And in the way that he phrased it, was by saying a word that would resonate 1,000 li, in their version of a mile. And it's curious, of course, that he was very linguistically focused, and a lot of the references within the Taoist tradition are all about linguistics. And we get back to where we are today. And it's just been gratifying that indeed it's possible to change reality, sitting on your butt in the woods, with a computer, in a gentle fashion, without being deliberately malicious and also, in a deliberate attempt to harmonize with the universe. And geez, anybody could do it.
Sorry, Lolly, just a quick one. So you're counter-influencing the negative effects of the powers that were with your own memering. Is that what you're trying to say as well?
I'm saying that the language that I choose, in a sense, you're correct. Okay, but I'm not doing it online in the sense of memering in terms of discussion groups and so on, right? My memering is being done with the language that I include in the reports, causes, in a Jay Widener kind of a parlance, an initiatory response and a series of necessary questions that follow. Bear in mind that the whole path to alchemy, to secret knowledge, to dojos, to any of this kind of stuff is all built around questioning. And you basically ask and answer your questions over and over and over again, and you get to the point where you get a real grasp of reality through the questioning process, what they called Socratic method in Greece, and, the Zen koans and all of this kind of a deal. So language is itself very powerful, and it causes neural networks within the brain to fire off in specific ways. And so it is possible to use specific kinds of language, as you see Buddhists do frequently, that will cause certain levels of resonance to occur, in essence, as a wave to be propagated or as a counter wave. And so I saw what the powers that be were doing with all of their spin and language and so on, and I decided that way back when, that okay, I have a couple of really good ideas about this. Universe has provided me with certain sets of skills. I can use language effectively, and so I will use their tool against them, since they're really like using language, and no one else I'd seen was taking this particular approach. And so I decided I would Aikido them with the feather moving the 10,000 pound attack, by knowing exactly what they were going to do ahead of time with the language, and, if you will, spoiling the field by spooking the game early.
And then sort of like knowing the answer about the question that you're about to ask type thing.
Correct. And it was a deliberate, thing that I need to apologize to everybody who's ever read my reports, because in essence I was intruding on their mental space. I do it as any other artist. Artists, by definition, really are people who tell lies in order to reveal the truth, through causing emotions to change. Quite the reverse of politicians, who use lies to obscure the truth by causing emotions to change. And so, as a true artist, it was my goal to use my martial art at whatever level I could. And so I used the language within the reports to cause people to think about things in specific ways. But that's no different than any other author. It's just that I had very deliberate processes that I wished to, and paths that I wished to expose in the language in a meaningful, conscious fashion as we went along, and do so to this day, whereas other authors may be more organic in it and just may flow with it, and the language may come tumbling out from them.
I did have the sense of that, Clif, beginning in last fall in some of the articles that you wrote. So I sort of caught that, woke up to that intention, and began to harmonize, as you say, with some of what you wrote. So while you might have had a specific intention to disturb the medium for the powers that be. I think what I've also been aware of is that it has been quite a good thing as I look on the forum and engage in that activity. For myself, it's been a good thing. Some of the things that you've written about, the article on the Tao of Humanity, that one really touched me. That ending of the last report.
Well, I'm very pleased that it did. I'm doing each and every one of these as though it's the last one I'll ever do, which is why the level of intensity seems to have ratcheted up. Hey, excuse me a second. We've got coughing in the throat that had to come out. Still there?
Yes, I am.
Oh, okay. So it pleases me that people catch this because it almost violates the process to ask. Make sense?
To ask you?
No, for me to ask hey, anybody catching what I'm doing here? You know?
Right. I got it. Okay.
Because part of the initiatory process is that the initiate in the martial arts must overcome each plateau on their own and reach this point of discovery, which is climbing up the appropriate cliff to reach to the next plateau, and so on and so on. And really, you kind of violate the process itself because by bringing the whole discussion of the process up to the initiate, because basically you're supposed to start out in a unaware mind, and it's when you recognize that you're part of the process that you obtain that big leap in real understanding and enlightenment.
Mm-hmm. So in combination with that bit of your report, in the article you wrote on shunning, where you said we're all dead.
Right, which is quite true, yeah.
Well, it is true for us all, but I also read it as also more of a transformational experience, as in the death card of the tarot. That again, that's a initiatory experience, sort of reading that and processing your words on that. Can you share more on that article on shunning?
The whole thing about the shunning was basically an attempt to get people to understand the seriousness of the attack underway by the powers that be, seemingly in a very deliberate fashion, as opposed to through incompetency, and that they are quite deliberately attempting to isolate us and poison us within the band of the equator north to 50 north latitude. And that, there's no need to be violent about it. Just because they're idiots and they're violent and they wish to attack at a violent level doesn't mean we have to respond that way. In fact, given this particular set of idiots, it's wise not to respond that way because they're very good at violence and handling it, categorizing it, labeling it, getting others to dismiss it, and then dealing with the perpetrators. As we see them do repeatedly. This is the whole message, is that you get out of line and we'll crush you. Now, usually that if you get out of line, we'll crush you thing is a subtle message that's been directed outward from the United States. That message is going to very soon be directed inwardly, and that'll be the breakout into fascism. Maybe. The problem is that they're erasing a series of circumstances, as are we all, that are manifesting all around us and are basically all really interrelated, where they're starting to exacerbate each other in what I'm thinking is going to be a really grand systemic meltdown. So will the powers that be succeed? Will they be able to engineer us into their particular agenda? Which includes, is they've left many groups of evidence, the death of a great number of us. And the evidence includes, releasing the plutonium, the BP, the planetary global warming thing, all of it. All of the power elite moving to the underground shelters in South America, the change in the southern hemisphere in terms of the political control and how it's all going. The evidence abounds. The seed vault in the northern hemisphere, as though we're all going to be wiped out, and later on when the powers that be return, they'll need to get some seeds, and there they are, all nice and stored and kept cold for them. See, the seed vault never made a lot of sense to me relative to a natural disaster such as a crustal shift, but it does under the current scenario where they're going to kill us all off quietly